Imagine a world transformed by the power of giving, where every act of kindness sparks another. These are the champions who dedicate their lives to change. Together, they are paying it forward. Champions of change. Paying it forward. Join us and be part of the movement. Here on the Achievement Channel.
Hello and welcome to another powerful episode of Champions of Change, the show where we spotlight individuals and organizations making a real difference in their communities. I am Pamela, Egbo, your host, and you're watching the Achievement Channel, Nigeria's first and only 100% motivational TV station, broadcasting from the School of Eloquence studio in Ikoyi, Lagos. Joining us today is Mr. Henry Bassey. He is a true social entrepreneur. Mr. Bassey is the founder and CEO of GreenHubAfrica. He's deeply committed to environmental sustainability and climate change. He also leads initiatives through his work as lead in-country consultant for the World Resource Institute. Stay with us as we discuss the impact, challenges, and vision of his work and how you too can be a part of this change. Let's dive right in.
Change. Paying it forward. Join us and be part of the movement.
Hello, Henry. Welcome to Champions of Change. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So your background obviously is in marketing, and but you've pivoted to social impact. You're a social entrepreneur, the CEO of GreenAfrica, and I know your remit is to create awareness about environmental sustainability, particularly in Nigeria. Through leveraging media, using media to educate people and advocacy as well. Tell me what inspired you to make that pivot and how has it been?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again. And it's been a really interesting journey, but when I think of inspiration, it happened when I was at career crossroads. So I was just moving out of banking and I started to collect my thoughts on what I needed to do. And I was literally away just collecting my thoughts when I literally had a dream.
Oh, wow.
I had a dream, and in that dream I saw myself at a green event. You know, and so woke up and I wrote down what I saw, and that's literally how GreenHubAfrica started. It has been an interesting journey because, like you said, GreenHubAfrica sits on 3 pillars: education, advocacy, and media. We saw a gap, or I saw a gap even when I was in banking, when I realized that sustainability and the environment were opportunities that could be leveraged much better. It's beyond cleanup exercises. Yeah. It's a mindset shift that requires behavioral change. And in just looking at the space and looking at the opportunity, I started to take one step after the other, and we have, arguably become a leading voice when it comes to climate literacy. We also are very, very strong with regards to capacity building. We've done enormous work with both local and multilateral partners globally. And we keep doing what we're doing. So I find that doors keep opening after doors keep opening, and it's just something where we haven't looked back since then.
Amazing. So on your website, you talk about the challenges, and the key challenges are around transportation, waste management, and energy, particularly in Nigeria. So tell us, how are you as GreenAfrica contributing to that conversation and creating a change in awareness? Because when you look around, particularly in Lagos where we live, there's an enormous challenges, but also enormous opportunities for real change environmentally. So how are you going about tackling that?
So we recognize that Nigeria is, 70% of Nigeria is below age 35. Right. So if we're going to make a dent and real impact, then we need to catch them young. So we have identified the youth and the young people, and recognize that if we begin to inculcate a mindset shift for them to understand that they need to actually change behavior, because when you hear climate change, it's literally about behavioral change. And so the opportunity we saw was to develop a syllabus for young people. And we did that with the UN just during COVID. So during COVID, the UN in New York had launched what they call the Climate Action Superheroes. And it was supposed to help young people take climate action. But we looked at it and we saw clearly that it wasn't going to resonate with our market here. So we took those superheroes and we recontextualized them for Nigeria. We gave them Nigerian names. We made them represent the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. And then we put together this syllabus because, again, educationally, and this is not just Nigeria, but even globally, you don't find, environmental education written into the curriculum. Right. There's a huge gap in learning globally. Yeah. So we came up with this syllabus. It has both practical and theoretical side to it, where the kids learn hands-on activities. But the beauty around it was that there were 8 superheroes, and we were able to tie each superhero to a superpower. Right. And the superpowers literally address these issues you have talked about. So if you're talking transport, then we're talking emissions, and all the emissions that come out through transport is a critical area to look at. There's a superhero that can address that. If you look at the issues of waste, there's waste both, in, hard waste. There's waste even when you're dealing with plastic in water and all that. And of course, there's superheroes that address these areas. And then, of course, with regards to education and advocacy, it's extremely important that people are aware. Because as they know, then they are able to make the right decision. So these are just a short snippet of some of the things that we started out doing, or we've since gone ahead to do a lot more for the older youth between ages 18 and 35. So last year we launched what we called, a platform, a learning management portal with the World Resources Institute, where we polled young Nigerians to ask them what their areas of interest would be. We set up a youth steering committee because we wanted it to be youth-led. And we realized that we were able to develop 5 modules. We got PhD experts to develop these modules. But it didn't just stop there. I mean, these modules cut across climate change and health, green entrepreneurship, issues around just transition and energy access, issues around climate negotiations and policy. And we then translated the courses to Hausa, Egbo, and Yoruba. Amazing. We got really, really pleasantly surprised because we had over 4,000 subscriptions. And we ended up having 3,700 plus certified young people who went through these courses. Fantastic. And that has just opened up another opportunity because we're now going to be launching the Cash Youth Network this year. And that in itself is going to house a lot more courses, but it will have a bias for entrepreneurship because we found that the young people were finishing the courses and saying, hey, I finished the course on climate finance and grant writing, what next? Right. So there's the feature that we've added, which is help them to actually become entrepreneurs, green entrepreneurs in this space.
Fantastic. So how important is collaboration in this process? Because obviously it's a huge task. You can't work in silo for it to, even just in Nigeria alone, it's a huge country, like you said, with 6 geopolitical zones. So how has collaboration really helped in this process?
Collaboration is fundamental. Right. And if you look at the SDGs, at GreenHubAfrica, we've started to look at the SDGs as an opportunity for business. Right. So yes, it's social impact, but if a business took an SDG and took it seriously, it would become its strategy, and then it could even have a direct impact on their bottom line. So partnerships are crucial. At GreenHubAfrica, we have what we call our 3 Ps, which is the people, and the people are literally sitting with civil society. The second P is public sector. The third P is the private sector. And we recognize that we need to be able to bring these 3 Ps together to be able to achieve results. One of our advocacy products is something that we do with the UN every year on World Environment Day. And at that event, we actually showcase all the stakeholders talking about what they do and how they have moved the needle with regards to protecting the environment.
Fantastic. So we'll take a quick break right now. We'll come back and continue this conversation with Henry.
Keep on watching Achievement Channel. You guys are doing a great job.
Oh, Achievement Channel is the best. Achievement Channel is the best.
Paying it forward. Join us and be part of the movement.
Eloquence focuses attention on the message and the audience.
I found it very interesting, exciting, stimulating.
It was very beneficial.
Definitely would learn a lot, a whole lot.
Thank you. The delivery was second to none.
Speak with power.
Speak with power.
Speak with power.
Champions of change. Paying it forward. Join us and be part of the movement.
Welcome back to Champions of Change. Before the break, we were talking to Henry Bassey about his incredible work that he does with GreenHubAfrica, educating people about environmental sustainability in Africa and Nigeria especially. So Henry, let's continue this amazing conversation. Sure. So what I want to know is, can you share any success stories over the years of you having environmental impact, particularly in Nigeria, because it's not an easy terrain to actually educate people about this, and yeah.
So it's been truly a remarkable feat, because when we started out, I had to start and literally fund 9 schools. Wow. By myself. And I knew I needed to put this under my belt, because we were going to be raising a world-class organization that was going to play the long game. And the long game simply meant we want every child in Nigeria to come in contact with our material. We want every young person to experience what we're offering. And so from a success story standpoint, after the 9 schools, we had a bank support us. We did a school in Lagos. And then, of course, the big leap came when we began to partner with the Owando Foundation. We've done about 70 schools now with Owando, 50 in Lagos and 20 in Jos. We're also looking at doing a couple more states this year. But what was interesting, and I'll speak to the different experiences, what was interesting with the Owando experience was that we were putting out content that is standardized.
Right, yes.
And in the process, the Lagos State Universal Basic Education Board literally adopted this syllabus and has scaled it and is still scaling it across the entire Lagos State. So that for us was really fulfilling because they found it worthy, courtesy Owando Foundation, to take the material and to ensure that every public school in Lagos State is going to experience this. Another remarkable feat was because in the process we have who we call the school champions, and the school champions are the teachers in the schools. Passing on that knowledge to the school champions who were working closely with our facilitators was also remarkable because we're able to see teachers who felt valued. And because there's a gap in training for these teachers, there was a huge opportunity for us to see the kind of impact it had. Another win was the children who were taking the lessons and going home. And for example, just with regards to one of the modules that spoke to waste management, we were seeing children encouraging parents to partner with them to invest in another bin. So waste separation was happening at home. The kids were able to influence the parents, and there's a clear understanding that you can separate waste from home. And that in itself then drives the opportunity to be able to earn a little token from the plastic waste that you've put aside. Because, hey, there are recyclers that are looking for this waste and they will pay you a token to get the waste from you. So these are just a few wins that I'll mention with regards to the primary school. There are more I could mention, but I'll also want to talk about wins in the secondary school space. So in the secondary school space, we were able to do schools all across the 6 geopolitical zones. So we did Calabar, Cross River, we did Enugu, we did Kano, we did Abuja, and we did Lagos. And what we saw were that the kids who were a lot older were very, very high on hands-on activities. So they were learning crafts, and they were able to use, for example, in some of the waste management classes, how they could upcycle plastic. And that in itself was a strong, strong, strong win because we saw them thinking about it from how it could also benefit them. And that was really, really great. On the youth, the ones between 18 and 35, that for us was so fulfilling because we were able to, like I mentioned earlier, get about over 4,000 to 5,000 of them to subscribe to the courses that I described earlier. And beyond just subscribing, they went on to get certificates. And this was done in collaboration with the Department of Climate Change from the Federal Ministry of Environment. And that in itself began to see young climate leaders emerge from Nigeria. Right. Today we can say confidently that we have a few of them that are doing things globally, and they've all come through this experience. So it's extremely fulfilling to just see the numbers keep growing. And so for us at GreenHubAfrica, we put emphasis on the outcomes and the outputs, because our impact story won't be complete without these two.
Exactly. You're doing excellent work. Thank you. So, Henry, I want to know if you can tell us, how can communities get involved on a daily basis that will make a tangible difference? Because, you know, sometimes when we hear of climate change or environmental sustainability, we think, oh, it's for the government to do, or it's for the private sector to do. How can we, as individuals, do something that will impact as a whole on a daily basis?
That's a brilliant question, and I will start from my own personal story. The moment I got the vision to go in this direction, I asked myself what was the first thing I was going to personally do to begin to protect the environment, to begin to fight climate change in my little corner. And so I sat with my darling wife and I said to her, you know, I just found out that the aerosols we use for our antiperspirants affect the ozone layer.
Wow.
And so would we be kind enough to the environment to swap them for roll-ons? And she said, why not? And that was my very, very first step in that direction. But we've since gone on to build a lot more capacity and competence in the space. And so what we do is recognize that awareness and education is fundamental. Right. And that the kind of content that we put out has to be seen to be beneficial to the end user. So you would hear, I never chop, I did think of climate change. So you really want to bring it home, which is why we have demystified it and brought it to be contextually relevant. And I say that because, for example, when we look at the superheroes that I'm talking about, they all have Nigerian names. They all represent the 6 geopolitical zones. But the issues of climate change are also local. So if you look at the north and you think about desertification and you begin to highlight why there's a connection with that and insecurity, then you will begin to have your lights turn on. Just because if you want a more secure area or country or city, then maybe the thoughts around trying to fight desertification will slow down the cattle ranching conversations, because you know that because desertification is happening and the nomads need to feed their cattle, they will keep moving. Now, if tree planting, for example, became a big deal, became a big campaign where people were also supported, and this is where government can come in, you know, support and help with the awareness of the individual, and just understanding that if each person, especially with the large expanse of land in rural Nigeria, planted a tree, just plant a tree and try and stay the course and make sure that it survives, you will be amazed at the thought that the tree is, they're the lungs of the earth, and so they'll be adding a lot more value. And in that vein, you begin to even hear conversations around carbon trading, which I don't want to get technical with. But fundamentally, we need to make people see what is in it for them. And as they see what is in it for them, they will be able to approach climate change, because it's happening in our backyards. If you look at the southeast, for example, the issues around gully erosions and what is happening to their landscape, again, if trees were planted, then you will begin to see that we're curbing the problems. But climate change is not a short sprint, it's a marathon. It fundamentally would have to start with change of behavior. And so I think that that is where people need to be responsible enough to say, okay, let me even try to pursue knowledge. And as I pursue knowledge, it will eventually rub off positively on the society and on the individual.
Amazing. I'm glad to know that I'm contributing. I use roll-ons,
You already do.
which is great, which is great. So just finally, I think, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking, well, you know, there is a lot of work to be done in disseminating information for people to understand. What is the quickest and best way, perhaps is a simplified question, but how can we really disseminate this information for people to understand the seriousness of protecting our environment, particularly in the youth, and how can maybe government be involved in that process to make that work?
One word: edutainment. Okay. And I say edutainment because this is the ingredient that GreenHubAfrica has used in all our programs. We bake in edutainment. And what does it mean? It's simply to learn about this thing in a fun and exciting way. I find that, if people begin to relate with the subjects, when you demystify, greenhouse gas emission, and you bring it home to say that it could end up hurting your heart from the air that we breathe.
Right, and your lungs.
And your lungs. And you're recognizing that the fumes from your generator are carcinogenic. You begin to pay attention to that. And for example, recently there's a clean cooking initiative for 80 million Nigerians that's been put out there. And that in itself would address the use of firewood. You have these women, they're, using firewood to make a living, but they're hurting themselves. And if they are aware, they can at least begin to pursue this. But in all of this, bring it home. Use pidgin, use local languages, use the right media channels and vehicles to connect with people. For the younger, for the youth, they're digital natives, catch them on social media. And for the guys in rural, maybe you want to go into local radio stations. But the idea is that we really must be able to connect with people. Once you can connect with people from a heart perspective, they will make the rational decisions that they need to do.
That's right. Amazing. We could go on and on. It's an inexhaustible topic. So thank you so much for today, and I wish you all the best in pursuing environmental sustainability in Africa. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Henry for demonstrating the power of diverse expertise in driving social impact. His leadership at the World Resources Institute and GreenHubAfrica showcases his commitment to a sustainable future. We hope you were inspired by his journey. Let's continue this conversation online. Follow us at Achievement Channel on Instagram, Facebook, X, and of course YouTube for more inspiring stories. We use #WeSeePossibilities to share your thoughts on today's discussion. Remember, service is the rent we pay for living. Stay inspired, stay engaged, and keep seeing possibilities on the Achievement Channel. See you next time. Bye for now.